Back. Today we're going to be building a SwiftUI app. Part 1. Let's get started. Download Xcode if you haven't. Then open the app. Click on File, go to the New tab, and Project. Create a multi-platform app called, in this case, I'm going to name it Assignment Tracker for this demo. And choose where you want to place it. Congrats! You just made your first iOS app and your first macOS app. A multi-platform app works on both Mac and iOS natively. We'll work on the iOS version for now. Okay, so as you saw in the beginning, it was an app that had a list of all of my classes. So let's create a new file. Click on Shared, double click, New File, a new SwiftUI view. And we'll name this Class List View. Okay. Now it had a list of all of my classes. So to make a list, we'll get rid of this text and just put the list. And then you can put whatever you want inside of a list, like text, images, and anything you want, any view. But for now, I'll create a row view and put it in there. Or, well, something like a row view. We'll create a VStat because we want multiple pieces of text to be in a single row. The first text will be class name. We'll change this when we get data into our app. The second piece of text will be blank number of assignments. Current. Okay, and then you should have noticed that to the left of the text, there was a rectangle, a rounded rectangle with a color, and that color should be the color that the class is represented by, like color coding. So we'll add a rounded embedded H stack, then we can add a rounded rectangle. I'll put a corner radius of 12, and I'll change the foreground color to dot green as an example, but we'll change that later. I also want it to have a frame so that it doesn't go too big. Like, say, 50 by 50. Perfect. Now, I want to compact my code even more. So, what I can do with this H stack is Command, click on the H stack, extract subview. And now I'll name this Class Row View. There, that looks good. Okay, now we should hook up some data. But first, we want navigation to be possible. The necessary thing to do for navigation is to embed your list into a navigation view. As the name suggests, it helps you navigate. It'll create a large space between the top of your list and the top of your screen. That's where your title goes. Dot navigation title should be classes. And this is pretty good. Okay, let's add some data. We'll add a new file to our shared group, a Swift file, since it's under source, which is a lot like data. So we'll add data. Okay, now we can import SwiftUI, but we won't need SwiftUI. We'll create a new structure called a class because a class is already a thing and will be thought of as a keyword. And we'll make it conform to identifiable. If you have identifiable, you need to put an ID in. It's a requirement. So we'll just set the ID to UUID. It's an easy ID to use. Universal ID. Okay, now let's make some parameters, like the name of the class, and some assignments, and the number of assignments, which we can do by making assignment count should be an int, and then we can make it a computated value by putting braces. Note that you cannot do equals something, other equals assignments.count, because it won't be able to get the value of assignments. You have to do this if you want the count of assignments, which is how many assignments there are. Okay. I'll create a new structure called assignment. And it should also be identifiable. And ID should be UUID again. But the name should be a string. And there should also be a due date, which should be a date. And then we'll change assignments from an array of strings to an array of assignments. Perfect. Now let's create the data. I'll create a variable called classes, and it should conform to an array of a class and equal brackets to make a list. Okay. Then let's start off with science. Okay, if I just do assignment, then the opening bracket is to just the variables I need. So let's do periodic table of elements. Due date should be today. Okay. And then we'll create another class called history with one assignment, Civil War study. And that should also be due today. Students have a lot of work to do. Okay, now let's pass this into our list view. I want multiple list views. But if we want our class row view to be customized, we should create a parameter it has to follow called a class. It should be an A class. Okay. Oh, something we should also add to A class is if you import SwiftUI, you have access to all colors. And so we should say their color should be a color, because class is to help color code. And then we can change the foreground color to a class dot color, and then we'll change the name to a class dot name. And then for this, we'll use string interpolation to put the number in. We'll do slash, backslash, parentheses, and then we need the string value of a class dot assignments count. Okay, now we need to pass an A class into this, but we don't have that. So command click on class row view, or just put navig a for each loop around it. And pass in the classes variable we made earlier. And we'll move that line of code into the thing. And then the A class should be the A class. Oh, in data.swift, it should pop up an error because we did not define colors. Just click on the red dot and hit fix, and it'll add the variable in. And then you can put any color you want, like red, or orange, or make a custom color in your asset catalog. Go back to class list view, and you have your two classes. Now, when you click on one, it should take you to a list of the assignments you have. To do this, we'll embed our class row view in a navigation link. This is made possible by the navigation view. We'll set a destination. It should be a view, but for now we'll just put text, which is a view, and say aclass.name, even though it's in string. We can change this later, but command click on that piece of text and hit extract subview. We'll name this detail view. Okay, the detail view should be a list. It should take in a parameter called aclass, and it should run through aclass.assignments. Assignment in. And then you can put a vstack, a piece of text for assignment.name. And now I'm going to create a variable called string from date, because you cannot convert a date into a string without this function. So I'll say date, it should take in a date and return a string. Okay, first you set your date formatter to date formatter. And then set the date style to short. And then we'll say let string value equal date formatter dot string from date. And then return the string value. Okay, so now we can put text string from date, date should be assignment.dueDate. Okay, great. Now over here, you just pass in the class. Okay, great. Now that our entire app is ready, we'll go into live mode And now we can test it out. If I click on here, it takes me to this. If I click on this, it takes me to the list of my history assignments. Okay, this is nice. But if I run the app, it still won't work because I need to pass this list view into content view. Class list view. I'll just pass it in right there. And now it's in content view. And our app is finished. In part 2, we'll learn how to use the edit button to move your list rows around. And then in part 3, we'll learn how to adopt this app for macOS. Bye. See you next time.